and the United States, Great Britain, international allies, and the United Nations to take swift and immediate action against these mainstream religious organizations in these key areas, for only then will the world have any hope of ever attaining peace and security. Now, there is so much more I could say on this particular subject, but if you want to see the article in full, you guys, I strongly encourage you guys to actually go to the article on the website. When I tell you I break it down in full, all the articles that can be imposed, human rights articles that can be imposed against mainstream religious organizations right now, I'm telling you, I go in and I go hard. But you know what? Maybe I should just take a deep breath and tell you right now. All right, you guys, this is a lot. You guys. I only laugh because there's just so much information, you guys. It's like, oh my goodness. All right, here we go. I'm going to go in it, you guys. I'm going to go in it. I'm tired, but I'm going to do this. Let's see, where do I start? Okay, here we go. All right, recognize that mainstream religions pose a threat to the sovereignty of every nation under the globe. In addition, they pose a threat to humanity and the international interest of peace and security. We call on the United Nations I call, and I say we, speaking on behalf of Court Magazine, to immediately close all mainstream churches, temples, shrines, mosques, close the doors of these religions who have been found guilty of sexual abuse, human trafficking, promotion and facilitation of, human trafficking, all those who have shamelessly engaged in theft, public exploitation, money laundering practices, those who have instigated, condoned, and carried out genocide, terrorism, hate crimes, and the alike. Under Article 19, Article 2, and under the Declaration of Human Rights adopted by the United Nations on December of 1948 at the General Assembly in Paris, freedom of religion was guaranteed. However, under Article 19, Section 3, and the 2011 General Comments Number 34, Section 35, gives all governments the freedom to limit the way in which these religions express their faith if they pose a threat to a sovereignty. In this particular case, mainstream religious organizations that make up the majority in a given country have long been responsible for genocide, mass murder, execution, rape, torture, and those belonging to religious minorities and even their own people, making their actions not only irreprehensible but also a violation of well-established international laws. By promoting the sexual abuse and human trafficking of children and women, they have defiantly stood against Article 4 that states in no uncertain terms that no one shall be held in servitude or slavery. By forcing and subjecting children and women to be participants in sex acts, mainstream religious organizations have subjected them to a form of sex slavery by both ignoring their cries for help and by protecting pedophiles and sex offenders amongst their leading ranks and expanding their sex and helping them to expand their quote-unquote sex slave ring when sending suspected sex offenders to other churches, temples, mosques after receiving substantiating accusations against these sexual predators for their misconduct. They are also in violation of Article 3 and 5 by robbing its own members and the international community of a safe and secure home, instead subjecting them to sexual torture and inhuman treatment without regards for their life, liberty, or rights. Also, they have defied Articles 7 through 30, denying lawful protection of a religious minority, subjecting them to genocide, terrorism, hate crimes, all in the name of religion and personal objectives for their quote-unquote holy wars. Now, time would literally fail me if I were to recount every incident in which mainstream religious organizations have violated Article 19 over the past 70 years without facing consequences from the United Nations. But to be fair, and I'm going to state this because to be fair, the United Nations doesn't really have the authority. Which is why I believe that every member of the United Nations needs to hand over the proper authority to the UN and give them the power to put an end to these religion's reign of terror on the international community. So we therefore demand, once the United Nations gets the power that they need from human governments, which will need to, from global governments rather, which they will need to get the power first before they can do this. Once they get the power, here's what we demand. We demand the immediate closure of all churches, temples, shrines, mosques who have willfully violated the Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19. They broke the law, close them, period. We also demand that the United Nations immediately prohibit religious involvement in political affairs and demand that political entities immediately cut ties with religious entities, including the Vatican, the Russian Orthodox Church, and other religious organizations that have used their religious influence to persecute the religious minority. Their political involvement must be eliminated under the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, articles adopted by the UN in 1966. Articles 18 states that the freedom to manifest one's religion or beliefs may be subjected only to such limitations as prescribed by law and are necessary to protect public safety, order, health, morals of the fundamental rights and freedoms of others. Hello, 2021. Can we not see that this is now a necessity? In that mainstream religious organizations who make up the majority of the state's population have used their power and influence to persecute, murder, rape, and engage in bloody warfares, it's vital at this point for the survival of humanity that those religious organizations have limits to their freedom, specifically revoking their participation in political matters both locally, nationally, and internationally. It is both prudent and vital that political leaders cut ties with mainstream religious organizations if the world will ever see the dawn of a new day under truly peaceful conditions. I'm not done. We further demand that the United Nations prohibit commercial gain and profit in the name of religion. Now, if you guys want to get more on that, stay tuned for my next episode and article. So here it goes. Here, I'm going to say it again just so that you guys get the point. We further demand that the United Nations prohibit commercial gain and profit in the name of religion, as it is both morally and ethically wrong and a form of shameless exploitation of the masses. It also works against human rights and serves to divide peoples, communities, cultures, and countries, and is posed a real threat to peace and security around the globe. Now, under Articles 20 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it clearly states that everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in the Declaration can be fully realized. When commercial entities appeal to the emotional side of religious members to sell their products or services, they are significantly impeding the development of human rights internationally. Those commercial practices work on isolating the religious minority, inciting religious fanaticism, and have been used to promote religious intolerance, hate, genocide, and hate crimes around the world. You can't imprison a pedophile and then legally distribute his images of child pornography. It would make you culpable and in violation of the law. In a similar way, not only must mainstream religious organizations be held accountable for their crimes against humanity, no one should be allowed to make any commercial profit from the paraphernalia that has launched the world into one of the most heinous and bloodiest conflicts in the 20th and 21st century. Any country representative or business leader should be heavily fined and penalized by failing to comply with adherence to the present or new articles under the UN addressing these very issues. It will require courage and a true commitment to humanity and global peace and security for the UN to rise up to the challenge and change and affect global change. UN members who are unwilling to support such a monumental move in the best interest of global peace and security should be immediately banned from the organization and penalized accordingly until they are willing to fight for human rights with the rest of the world. The United States and Britain must lead the global change to fully establish their role as international leaders who are and who may want to have that role at ushering in a new era of international peace and security. Therefore, the removal of all major religious organizations that stand in opposition to human rights is vital for the survival of humanity, but also for the survival of the United Nations and their core objectives. It is vital for international safety of our children, our women, and our freedoms. It is vital to end the wars, the supposed quote-unquote holy wars, genocide, mass murder, rape, sexual assault, and so many more evils religious leaders and organizations have instigated, condoned, and carried out in the 20th and 21st century. Now that the jury and the judge have been presented with all the facts, it's now up to them. Go to your chambers, to the privacy of your own homes. Go to your UN retreats, deliberate, say what you need to say, do it. But we are extremely confident, though, obviously, that when you come back to deliver your verdict against these mainstream religious organizations, the verdict will be guilty as charged on account of mainstream religious organizations instigating genocide, mass murder, war, and hate crimes. The United Nations must find the defendants guilty on the account of mainstream religious organizations facilitating, condoning, and carrying out acts of sex slavery, child sexual exploitation against not only children but also women as well, right? The United Nations and members should find the defendants guilty. The world over will rejoice in your verdict, and it will usher in the dawn of a new era in the world. It will truly be a fight and a step in the right direction for international peace and security. But will the United Nations rise to the challenge? Will they prevail? The decision is, of course, something that they must themselves decide. But we're so close, so I believe that they will indeed. You see, the world has changed on sexual pedophilia and hatred, and people are changing. People are starting to see that it's not right, and they're starting to speak up, and they're starting to say things. And so I believe that the United Nations will stand up and do the right thing. And I believe that UN members will lend their power and support to the UN to give them the power that they need to put an end to mainstream religious organizations' reign of terror on humanity. That being the case, you guys, for the full article, you guys can always visit this at courtmagazine.org. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, say what you got to say. But like I said, I will always tell the truth, irregardless. You guys already know that. That being the case, you guys stay safe. Next time I hop on a podcast for this particular segment, we're going to talk about the economic advantage to ending the reign of terror of mainstream religious organizations. The economic advantage. Now we're talking about money. All right, you guys. So stay tuned for that. Until next time, I'm Joseph Bonner saying, always tell the truth.